everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in the spirit of trying new booktubery content this year, I'm going to record a reading vlog where I read like Meghan Markle. So why Meghan Markle, you might be wondering. If you know me, you know I am fascinated by the British royal family. And so I've been super interested in Meghan Markle. I've been following all the news, all the gossip, and I kind of want to form my own opinion of her, and what better way to get to know someone than through books they recommend or books you know that they like. I think it's a great insight into someone. Okay, most of you are probably aware of the Meghan Markle story, and having lived in the UK for the last 4 years, I know a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about Meghan Markle. So recently I read the book, Finding Freedom, Harry and Meghan and the Making of a Modern Royal Family. This is by Omid, Scobie and Carolyn Durand. And it came out last year and it made a pretty big splash because it's a thick book. There's a lot of detail about Harry and Meghan's relationship, about them leaving the royal family. So I checked out some of her recommended lists. You might know Meghan Markle had a blog before marrying Prince Harry. She took the blog down, but fan sites have preserved a lot of the content on there. And one of the lists on that blog was 5 books everyone should read in their lifetime. So from this list, I thought I would take a look and see if any of them sounded interesting to me. So those books are, first, The Motivation Manifesto by, let me check the name, Brendan Burchard. The second is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This is a really famous book. I'm putting them all up here so you can see them. You probably recognize the cover. I know that I did, but I've never read it. The third book is The Little Prince. This is a classic. I actually see this book on a lot of recommended lists from celebrities, and I wonder if it's a really safe book to recommend. I know there have been movie adaptations. It's really famous, but I've never read it. I've never seen a movie. I have no idea what it's about. Then there's a book called Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Megan said she read this book in an industrial engineering class. Cool. The 5th book is The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. So I haven't read any of these books. They're mostly in the genre of what I would call more self-help, and that is not a genre that really interests me, so it could be interesting to read some of these and see if I like them. I happen to own Who Moved My Cheese, so this is one that I will definitely read. Look how small it is. It's tiny. So this one I'll definitely read. Add this to the list. Of the others, I think The Tao of Pooh is Taoism told through Winnie the Pooh. I don't really know Winnie the Pooh, so that one's out. The Motivation Manifesto is out, but that leaves The 4 Agreements and The Little Prince, both of which I found at my library, and so both of which I'll add to the list to read. I did find another list on a fan site, and I'll link these lists down below so you can check them out. And this list kind of scraped through old Instagram posts from Meghan and added some additional titles that she's recommended in Instagram posts or in other blog posts. And some of those seemed really interesting. A lot of those were about style and fashion, more like coffee table books. So I'm not going to read any of those, but one that did sound really interesting is a book called The Inner Gem by Light Watkins. And I'll read you exactly what Meghan said about this. So Meghan shared this book on her blog as a key book for beginner's meditation. And she said, I told Light I didn't have enough hours in the day to do it, and he told me that's why I needed to meditate twice as much. Not gonna lie, I rolled my eyes, thinking, oh, give me a break, mystic man. But lo and behold, this mystical man was right. So that sounds great. I'll definitely add that to the list. Okay, so in the end, that leaves 4 books on my list of books to read like Meghan Markle. The Inner Gem by Light Watkins, Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson, The Little Prince, and The 4 Agreements. So I'm going to read those over the next couple of days, and I'll bring you along with me to see how I like them, and at the end we can see if I'm more like Meghan Markle. I have styled myself like Meghan Markle today, so that is why I've got this look going on. All right, talk to you later.
Hi guys, good morning. So I am coming to you from my bedroom today because I wanted to update you on something I've been doing in the morning, which is the first book that I'm reading for this challenge. So that book is this one, The Inner Gym by Light Watkins. And this is a book about, it says a 30-day workout for strengthening happiness. And it is a workbook. So I wasn't sure how it would work to get a workbook on Kindle version, but the pages for the workbook are still in the Kindle version. Obviously I guess you could add notes and stuff on Kindle, but what I've been doing instead is just taking notes in my bullet journal as I go along. So I've got a few pages set aside for this in my bullet journal, and that's been working really well. So I wanted to start with this book because obviously it takes 30 days. It's a 30-day workout. It's relatively short, but you have to kind of read a section, do an activity for 5 days, then read the next section, do an activity for 5 days, etc. That's how you get to your 30 days. I wanted to start with this one because it's about meditation. I wanted to start with this one because it's about meditation, and meditation is something that I have always been interested in and that I've tried to incorporate into, my life, my routine before, but it's never something that I've been able to stick with for a consistent amount of time. So I wanted to start with this book. I thought this was kind of a good moment for me to try to add something else to my routine because I've stopped working this week. And so, I've got time on my hands. I guess I'll tell you a little bit about what it's been saying. So the concept is you wouldn't tell someone who, sorry, this is like at a weird angle. I'm like looking down. There's Padre Pio. You can tell I'm in Italy. So the concept is you wouldn't tell someone who hasn't been working out physically to just go and do a pull-up, because you have to exercise those muscles, you have to strengthen like various parts of your body, you have to work out regularly before you're able to do a pull-up. It's not something you can just like choose to do. And similarly, Light Watkins in this book says happiness isn't something you can just decide to do one day. You can't just say, okay, today I'm gonna be happy. If that were the case, then more people would be happy. He also says, we are convinced growing up, you're convinced that if you marry the right person, if you get the right job, you will be happy. But that scientifically has been proven not to be true. It's not something, happiness isn't something that comes through success or achievements or choice. So what he says is you have to exercise your inner muscles, you have to work on being happy, and the best way to do that is through regular meditation practice. So you know what? I'm on board. Like, I enjoyed the description. I'm like, I get it. I'm with him. And so then we dive into the activities. And I'm on week 2. So I just did day 8 this morning. So I've done meditation for 8 days in a row already, which is really good for me. That's a Christmas ornament in the back there. And my passport. Okay. So the first week activity is basically to just, before you get out of bed in the morning, sit up, prop yourself up against the wall behind me or a headboard, or if you're better off in a chair, move to a chair. But before you really start your day, spend 10 minutes sitting in silence. So you do that for 5 days. And then week 2, which is what I'm on now, you continue doing that, but at the end you add a gratitude practice. And yeah, it's going really well. I'm actually sticking with it. I enjoy it. It's working really well. So I don't know. I'm not going to finish this whole practice before I finish the video because I don't want to wait 30 days. But maybe I will hop back on and tell you what week 3 is, because I'll be there in a couple days and I might have time to do that before I edit and post this video. But I can say that I really like this one. I would definitely recommend this one. I'm gonna make my husband do it. I like it a lot. Talk to you later. So I just finished Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. And this is a tiny, tiny book. So it's a really short read, but I tried to read it slowly and appreciate what it was saying. I took notes. I don't know what to say about this book. It's called an international classic. It says 28 million copies sold worldwide, one of the most successful business books ever. It's like a parable about mice and humans in a maze chasing cheese and dealing with change, like when the cheese is moved. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those books where they say it takes like 45 minutes to read it, and every time you read it you get something new. So I guess I got a few things from this book. I think one of the things I got was, oh my gosh, this is gonna sound so silly to talk about it this way, but like, as the humans got used to knowing where the cheese was in the maze, they got more and more complacent. So they said, they awoke each day a little later, dressed a little slower, and walked to work a little slower. After all, they knew where the cheese was and how to get there, and then they were just getting more and more comfortable. And I feel like that is definitely something I can see in myself. Like, I like the comfort of knowing where my cheese is. But I do think that, like, personally, I don't super struggle with change. Clearly, I just moved to a different country. I do that a lot. So I don't really struggle with change, but I think maybe some of the advice here is useful in terms of recognizing when it's time to move on for yourself, or recognizing when change is about to happen. But yeah, that I think was useful. Yeah, I don't know, that was what jumped out to me this time when I read it. I think it's interesting to read this at the same time that I'm doing the work from the meditation workbook, because that book is all about finding happiness and how, like, success in work doesn't bring you happiness. And this book, the cheese book, is a business book, so it kind of doesn't really interrogate the idea that, like, cheese brings you happiness. So, like, cheese, whether it's money or a job, or, you know, they try to apply it to personal life as well. Finding the cheese brings you happiness in this book. And so it's interesting to kind of think about, like, what is cheese really? Like, what makes you happy? Oh my gosh, I'm getting so existential here. I can hear myself. Anyways, yeah, quick read, useful framing maybe for thinking of some of these issues. Yeah, not bad. Not my favorite, not bad, but it was tiny, so yeah, cool. It's gorgeous outside. I'll show you. So I'm gonna take a walk now. Talk to you later. Hi guys, so I just finished reading The Little Prince. Basically, if you don't know, The Little Prince is a children's book. It's really famous. I've definitely heard about it a lot, but for some reason it's not something I've ever read, and it's not, like, I didn't know a single thing. Before I read this, I couldn't have told you a single thing about The Little Prince. Even though there's a movie, it's really famous, people talk about it all the time. So I'm happy to have read it because it's so culturally important. And I mean, the message is, like, I get it. I get that it's important. I
I think probably if it's a book that you read for the first time as a kid and then you revisit it a few times, the messages probably stay with you a little bit more. For me, reading it for the first time as an adult, it's kind of like, I get it and I get that it's important and it's gorgeous, but it's not going to stick with me in the same way it would have if I had read it for the first time when I was a kid. Does that make sense, right? Yeah, and then I guess the other thing is Meghan Markle. I don't really get the connection here. While I was reading it, I was thinking a lot about BTS and The Little Prince and how they reference, as I was reading it, I was like, oh, you know, like I'm getting all these references from a lot of their visuals and music videos. So I was thinking more about BTS than I was about Meghan Markle. So that is what it is. Also, Italy. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. Super happy to have read it. I wouldn't mind having like a physical copy that I could flip through whenever I wanted to. So yeah, good to know. Yeah, so plans for this afternoon. I am going to make what are called mandarini sotto spirito. So mandarins preserved under alcohol, just because that sounds like perfection. So that's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon. I will take you along with me. And in terms of reading, the last book I have to read is The Four Agreements. So I'm going to start on that as well. Talk to you later. Hi everybody, so I just finished The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and I'm glad this is the last book of this reading challenge thing that I'm doing. So this book is presented in a very like mystical or magical kind of way, but the concepts themselves are really pretty simple or straightforward. Basically, the idea is that we're all kind of socialized from birth and taught what's right and wrong and taught about our identities, and that not because we're taught that information, it might not be the truth or it might not be true to yourself. And so you need to make these four agreements with yourself to escape from the hell that you've created in your own mind by listening to the agreements of others, I think is the idea. So the first agreement is speak impeccably, which, you know, fair enough. People's words can stick with you for a long time, so you should be careful with what you say. Fine. Let's see. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. And there's actually a pretty good quote in this section. And it is, nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves. I feel like that is literally something I've been told in therapy. So I feel like a lot of this is kind of very basic therapy concepts, maybe. So yeah, basically don't take anything personally. The next one is don't make assumptions, and always be willing to ask for clarification. And then finally, the last agreement is always do your best. And in that section, I did like, he spent a little time thinking about or commenting that your best is going to be different every day. And so to kind of learn from your mistakes and move forward and just always be trying to do your best. So I think it's always good to be reminded of these sorts of concepts. And if you think reading them in a kind of mystical, magical presentation like this book would be, oh my gosh. Okay, I'll see if that works out. If you think that reading about these concepts in this kind of spiritual, magical package will be effective for you in being reminded of, you know, these very basic principles, then that's great. You should read this book. I think probably it would be more effective to go to therapy than to read this book, because if you're just reading the book, it's kind of hard to apply it to your own life as you're reading it, or even kind of, for me at least, it was hard to cut through some of the language in the book. So just go to therapy and then read this book, maybe, like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, wrap up thoughts coming next. Okay, time for a wrap up. So for this project, I read 4 books that have been recommended by Meghan Markle at some point in time. And to recap, those were The Inner Gym by Light Watkins, Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I don't know how to say that, even though I took French. Ooh. These were all really short books, so they didn't necessarily take a long time to read, but I did find it more tiring than I expected, and I think it's because each book required a lot of self-reflection to get through, and I just found that really tiring. And I guess I don't really understand people who only read this type of book. I know there are a lot of YouTubers out there who maybe say like, oh, these books will change your life, or like, these are my favorite books of all time, and it's this kind of book that's very like self-helpy, and I just find it exhausting to think about how to improve myself all the time. And also I found as I was reading, I almost felt a bit resentful of myself for failing at these things, and also resentful at the book sometimes for saying things that were really obvious, and I would be like, oh, like, this is so boring, this is a waste of time, why am I reading this? So with that being said, for each of these books then, over the next couple of days after I finished them, I did find myself reflecting on them, or things would come up. I would say things and be like, oh, that connects to this book in this way, or, oh, remember I read this book about change and this concept might be helpful for you, like people I was having conversations with. So I do see the value in reading these books. I just don't know that, no, I know for a fact that I couldn't read them all the time. Back to the books. In terms of rating these books, obviously I'm still not done with The Inner Gym because it's a 30-day workbook, and I guess if I had planned this properly, I could update you on all 30 days, but it's something I'm still working through. But I do really like it, and I do really like and appreciate the concept of meditation, and I think a regular meditation practice is really important. So I think I am going to give the book probably 4 or 5 stars when I'm done with it. It's a good one. The other one that I really enjoyed reading was The Little Prince, and I enjoyed reading that because it's a classic, and because I think it's one of those books that it's just important to know because so many people refer to it, and it's something I've never picked up on until now, and now that I've read it, I get the cultural commentary, or I get the references that people make, or I can get the references that people make to it. So that's cool, and I really enjoyed that one. Oh, I gave The Little Prince 5 stars. Who Moved My Cheese? I gave 3 stars. I didn't love it, but I have found myself coming back to it several times, so that's great. And then The 4 Agreements, I also gave 3 stars because while I think the concepts in it were really good, I didn't love the way it was communicated. Okay, so at the beginning of this video, I said I wanted to read these books because I wanted to get to know Meghan Markle a little bit through the books that she recommended, and I wanted to know what makes her tick, how she's stood up to such intense pressure over the last couple of years, and what makes her glow a little bit brighter when she goes into a room. And I do think it was a really interesting process, and I do think that I have a little bit more of an insight into Meghan Markle now that I've read these 4 books. And I guess a caveat is, I'm assuming that when she put these books on her blog, she has read them, which might not be a fair assumption to make, but I'm gonna make that assumption. I think anyone whose favorite types of books are these kinds of self-help books is someone who is clearly very interested in self-improvement. And I think all of these books shared a common theme of figuring out what makes you happy. shared a common theme of figuring out what makes you happy and going after it. And I think you can see that philosophy in Megan's life. And I actually found myself wondering, okay, this is gonna sound stupid, but I found myself wondering, you know, maybe she had a conversation with Harry about what their cheese was. Like for the two of them, what was their cheese? What makes them happy? And maybe that book and that thinking helped them make the decision to leave the royal family and move to the US. I mean, I can see how that book could contribute to that type of decision. Another place I think I might be able to see the influence of some of these books in Megan's life philosophy is in her reaction to the tabloid media press. I've been thinking a little bit and just wondering if maybe her stance against tabloid media coverage is a little bit derived from The Four Agreements, which is a book she said she's been reading since she was like 13. And in that book, they say one of the greatest, most evil things is gossip. And so if that is something she has been thinking or reading a lot since she was 13, obviously she would have this real personal stance against gossip. I feel like I can see the influence of this book on her stance against tabloid media. And obviously, like, there's more there, there's more to it, but I think there's elements there that you can connect to this book directly. I don't know. Megan, if you're watching, let me know. In terms of lighting up a room, I think that's probably just something that she is born with. Although maybe being really happy and daily meditation practice, all of these things can contribute to having an inner glow. But it's definitely not something that I can achieve just by reading these 4 books, as interesting as they were. Yeah, so I think she's just born with it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this reading vlog. It was definitely a fun little experiment, and I'll try to do something similar in the future. If you liked it, let me know in the comments down below if you've got any other celebrities you think it would be interesting for me to do. Yeah, and I just hope Megan is happy, and I also hope for her that she reads some fiction sometimes, because she might be tired from reading these types of books all the time. But yeah, have a good day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!